I'm in the Revolutionary Communist Group and currently involved in a campaign in Glasgow, Scotland called the Glasgow Defence Campaign, which is to defend democratic rights and to oppose political policing in all its forms. So the campaign started in 2010 when Strathclyde Police attempted to stop us selling our newspaper, Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism. This was being sold in a working class area, multicultural, one of the most diverse in the whole of Scotland. So the anti-racist message was needed. The police came up, they seized our table, they would seize our papers every time we went out. Eventually they charged us illegal street trading under a 1982 Civic Government Scotland Act. We carried on selling the paper. We set up a blog called the Govan Hill Defence Campaign. The blog was badges of the officers and their pictures we published on the web and publicised what was happening in the local area, won the support of the community. 24 hours after we set up the blog, the head police officer at the local station phoned us up on our personal numbers and wanted to meet. He said he was worried that the dispute was growing arms and legs and that it was childish. So eventually we went down and met with the chief police officer, I can give you his name, Stephen McAllister, and we put it to the officer that yes, Strathclyde Police are a racist institution and they're interfering with our political rights and we're going to expose them. He denied all of this, which was expected, and we left the meeting. We carried on campaigning, built pressure, and they dropped the 2 charges against 2 of us. They carried the other charge on for a couple of other months on the other comrade and then eventually dropped that as well. So that was a victory in itself, but the consequences, which are to be expected when you stand up against police harassment, were that they knew our face and they knew our names and they knew our politics, that we were an organisation that didn't put our heads down to police harassment. We think the only way to fight police harassment and brutality is to shout as loud as possible about it. For a while we thought that the best way, or we thought we might not publish our names on the blog, we might not do this, but we realised in terms, like, during the struggle, that it was the opposite. The only way to combat this harassment was to publicise it as widely as possible and in turn expose the officers' actions. Expose that they're racist, expose that they're political. The police are there to clamp down on dissent. So 2010 there was a student protest, £9,000 tuition fees were being introduced, and in Glasgow there was protests of 200-300 people. They were probably some of the most militant that have been held for the last couple of years. The officers knew our faces. They arrested 2 of us out of a crowd of, like I say, 300 people, and we were taken to the station. I was strip searched. We were framed up on police assault charges, resisting arrest, and from that the campaign was expanded from the Govan Hill Defence Campaign to the Glasgow Defence Campaign, because we realised now that this wasn't just a case of this working class area, this was a case of the whole of Glasgow. It wasn't just ourselves that were being attacked. That's Fight Racism, Fight Imperialism. At that time there was other student groups in Hetherington. Student occupation at Glasgow University was quite widely known at that point, and the police went in with dogs, helicopter. I broke a couple of collarbones and took people out. So we felt there was a need for a united progressive force in the city to combat this, and yes, so I was put for trial. That trial came after another arrest in January 2011, so that was about a month and a half after the first arrest, where I was basically abducted off the street by officers after a I think it was a protest against the cuts again. I mean, I don't need to go into all the details. Basically, I was walking away from the protest. I'd used a loudspeaker. I was out on bail. I was a target. I was known, and 8 officers came out of nowhere and flung me in a van. I was walking away. So I was put up on a police assault charge, and I went through trials. So we went through these trials that have been going on for 3 years. I was arrested again in 2000, just there, in February, and I was arrested again in April 2011. So the harassment has been, at points it's intensified, it's affected our family lives, our personal lives, and obviously being a communist organisation, then we see the personal lives and political lives as being quite joint. So it's affected our life, but we've learned a lot, you know, in this time, that the officers, while they do have all the courts and the time and the money to be able to clamp down and harass people 24 hours a day,